for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering El Clasico, previewing that game as Barcelona take on Real Madrid. We'll move on to preview Arsenal versus Liverpool. We'll discuss the full Premier League preview for this weekend. And we'll also do a Matchday 9 Serie full preview as well. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show where I'll be giving you some of my reactions on some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. If you have a question during the show we want to hear, your input is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energies and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, please don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. And if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Just use the super chat feature. Just to hit the $sign at the and hit the $sign at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your super chat gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We really rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can always go to the gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, or leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We do have to start off. First of all, I want to say, never been looking forward to an El Clasico more in a very, very long time, as we have Barcelona take on Real Madrid. Exciting game coming up between these two teams. Huge game when you look at where these two teams are right now. The resurgence of Barcelona under Hansi Flick. We know what Real Madrid is under Carlo Ancelotti. They're both right now sitting on top of La Liga. Barcelona currently sitting first, 3 points ahead of Madrid. But a really good start to the season for Barcelona. 9 wins from 10, suffering that one loss that they suffered. Real Madrid, on the other hand, 7 wins, but haven't lost a game. 3 draws to go with it. Now, this is going to be a fantastic game. We know how these teams want to go about it. Barcelona under Hansi Flick, the really high line, the aggressive pressing, the wanting to suffocate opponents. Real Madrid having that balanced approach in terms of being able to defend really high and be open, but also have the know when's the right time to close up shop a bit, have a little bit more balance. Barcelona, there's no balance with Barcelona under Hansi Flick. This is 100 miles per hour from minute 1 to minute 90. And I think the contrasting styles with the combination of this game being played at the Bernabeu and everything, it's just going to make this a fantastic game. And I'm very looking forward to it. I think we're all looking forward to it. This is a game that we haven't got much of, this high-stake El Clasico. We've had El Clasicos in the last few years, of course. We always have El Clasicos. But I don't think the stakes have been anywhere near as high as we're about to get right now. These are two teams that are both, in my opinion, so far, probably top 5 teams in the world. I think Barcelona has played themselves into that discussion with the football we've seen this season. And by the way, Barcelona has scored 33 goals in La Liga this season. 33 goals in 10 games. They're averaging more than 3 goals a game. More than 3 goals a game in La Liga. It is ridiculous. That is crazy. They put 5 past Sevilla. And by the way, actually, I say they're averaging over 3 goals a game in La Liga. You go to their Champions League statistics, they're averaging more than 3 goals a game in the Champions League as well. They've scored 10 goals in 3 games in the Champions League. So they've been ridiculous. But going back to this Barcelona team, they've been ridiculous. They put 4 past Bayern, 5 past Sevilla, 3 past Alaves, 5 past Young Boys, 5 past Villarreal, 4 past Girona, 7 past Valladolid. They've gotten, they've been dominant. They did have that slip-up that they suffered to Osasuna, which will happen. And they had that slip-up as well. Monaco was going down to 10 men very early on. But overall, they've played some excellent football. Rafinha, he's probably been the best player in the world up to this point this season. If the Ballon d'Or ended today, he would probably win it. That's just based on this season, of course. I know we know what Vinicius, Rodri, all that. I'm talking about for this season so far. He probably might be the Ballon d'Or if it ended today. That's how great Rafinha has been. His direct nature, him having to play now operate off the left hand side and almost in the center as well with the because of well because of the surgence of Lamine Yamal, who we knew he was gonna lock up that right hand spot. Especially what he did at the summer at the European Championship. We know the quality and the ability that he has. He's just a sensational player that he is. So obviously, we knew what was gonna happen. And Rafinha has had to adapt. There was a lot of tension as well with Rafinha, with him and the fans a little bit. Not tension as well. There's a lot of rumors coming around, and heavy rumors. Barcelona wanted to go after Nico Williams, we know Nico Williams. He had that absolutely sensational European Championship, and Barcelona, they wanted to take advantage of that Spanish talent. Couldn't get it quite the line. I guess it was an added motivation, but Rafinha has been absolutely electric. He's been sensational. The goal scoring, the playmaking, his direct nature, how he's been able to be. How he's been able to be a player that can play off the left hand side, and also been able to play centrally as well, giving them that flexibility, the confidence he's playing, the goals that he's scoring. That last goal he scored against Bayern Munich, that is a confident goal. The way he took that out in a really hard angle, the amount of space he had to cover as well, getting into that to get into that area to get that shot off on that opportunity. Pretty poor goalkeeping, yes, but it was still a really, really good finish and a hard finish from that angle. Rafinha has been amazing, and I do think there's an opportunity there. Real Madrid, they do have a vulnerability in that back line. Lucas Vazquez has made some mistakes here and there since Dani Carvajal has been out. Lucas Vazquez has there's a chance that Rafinha can get at him with his direct nature. I'm looking forward to that matchup. Now for Real Madrid, what I'm looking for Real Madrid is I'm interested. Rodrigo, he came off in that Dortmund game. He came off early in that Dortmund game. He has an injury. He's not gonna play in El Clasico. But I do have to say, I think Real Madrid shouldn't start him in general in this game. I think in this game going up against Barcelona, and you have enough pace with Mbappe, Vinicius. Why don't you get an extra midfielder in there, bring on Camavinga, pull out Rodrigo, and have that steady midfield of Valverde, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Bellingham, playing. Just drifting right behind Vinicius and Mbappe, all of them sort of drifting and being flexible. Why not? You get more control in the midfield. You allow Bellingham to push up. Bellingham, he's on a goal drought. You put him in a position where he can make those late runs and get in dangerous areas as well. Now the thing is, you might want to, instead of Camavinga, bring in Luka Modric, because look, there's going to be a lot of space in behind for Real Madrid to be able to pick out a ball. Luka Modric has that quality. I think Antonio Rudiger from the back, he has that ability to pick out that ball as well. Barcelona, under Hansi Flick, they're going to come out and they're going to have their back four at the halfway line. They're going to press with heavy intensity. They're going to try to make Real Madrid suffer. If you can find a little bit of quality to play out of the initial press, and you can get the ball to Luka Modric with a little bit of time and space to pick out Mbappe and Vinicius, they can cause some issues for Inigo Martinez and his name is escaping my mind. Inigo Martinez and Pau Cubarsí, who's so far they've had a pretty good season. I think defensively they've been pretty solid this season with how open that they've been. The thing with Hansi Flick is his teams are very open and very attack minded and pressing, but they still get the job done defensively. They give up opportunities here and there and a goal here and there, which will happen. It's bound to happen when you're that open. But overall, as a unit, they're not easy to play against, despite how open they are. And that's the thing that I commend Hansi Flick for: how open they are, how attack-minded, how much they like to press, how high they play the line. But they're still not easy to play against defensively. They still, it's still difficult to, score on them. and it's been brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant. And overall, this El Clasico, I believe, is going to be brilliant as well. There's the tactical battle of it. There's the managers. This is, Hansi Flick's first game in El Clasico. I believe Carlo Ancelotti, this is the toughest Barcelona team he's having to deal with in his second tenure, of course, with Real Madrid. I know there was the Xavi team that won La Liga a few seasons ago, but that was more Real Madrid bad than Barcelona good. I think this is elite. And maybe, you look at the squad, and this squad is not that much better than that title-winning team, but they have a way of going about it. They have a purpose. They have a manager that is quite simply world-class, that has shown in the past, before Barcelona, that he can compete with the top managers. He's done it before. He's won Champions Leagues. He's won multiple Bundesligas. So there is that aspect to it. Now, the Bernabeu is a great atmosphere, and that's something that Real Madrid fans are going to take advantage of. But if Barcelona, this is a statement game for them. They can go in there and they can win. They're announced, and they win this game. They go 6 point clear at the top. They're announcing themselves as a title. All right. I'm still, I'm not iffy on them being title contenders, but I am iffy on them on being title favorites, because we know Real Madrid, they seem to always get the job done. But if you win this game, you are sending a message, not to Real Madrid, but you're sending a message to football fans worldwide that Barcelona is back, and is back legit. And the fact that, let's be for real, there wasn't no drastic change in player personnel or anything like that. The fact that it came majority-wise because of a manager, that's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a preview of Arsenal taking on Liverpool.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed El Clasico as Barcelona take on Real Madrid. We move on to do an Arsenal-Liverpool preview. This is the big Premier League game coming up this weekend. Massive game, honestly, for both clubs. Bigger for Arsenal because of the circumstances they find themselves in. But there's a lot to say here. With this match, now there's multiple storylines. There's Arsenal, who I'm surprised how it's almost been a little underreported from what I've seen myself. Maybe I'm just not, in the Premier League bubble enough, but they've gone through a heavy amount of injuries, and it's almost been devastating. The blow after blow after blow, and then to culminate that, you lose Saliba for this game because of a red card, and then a few days later you lose Calafiori to an injury. They've suffered some injuries. We know Martin Odegaard, he's still not going to be available for this game. Bukayo Saka, he has returned to training, and he ahead of the Liverpool game. There was reports that Arteta. I mean, no, not reports. Arteta was pessimistic about his chances, playing in this one. But who knows? It seems like Timber, he might be a possibility as well. As far as Bukayo Saka, he did some training on the grass. Timber was hoping to be involved in training, but then it was admitted he expected him to be further down the road to recovery, and then Calafiori, he's out more likely than not. So as far as Arsenal, Diego Jota, he will not be available. He's gonna miss the game. He's gonna miss the game for Liverpool. He's not even gonna be in the squad. It seems like he suffered a knock as well. That's a big blow for Liverpool. He is there starting. He is there starting forward through the middle. It's gonna now it's gonna be Darwin Nunez more likely than not. That's gonna come in and have to fill that role. That's gonna be interesting. But Arsenal have a lot of injuries that they've suffered. Right, but again, at the end of the day, this is the team battling for the Premier League. They can't make excuses for themselves. As Arteta said, they can't feel sorry for themselves. And then, the Liverpool, brilliant team, professional team, not as high-flying as Jurgen Klopp. We saw a little different element to them in Chelsea, being okay with not having the ball, with allowing the other team to almost dictate the tempo of the game, and Liverpool to sit back and just allow to observe pressure. We never really see that from a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, they're 99 miles per hour from minute 1 to minute 90. This is a little bit more balanced approach to Liverpool, which is ironic because what we've seen from Arsenal is an extremely balanced approach. They've allowed multiple teams to have full-on control of the game. You look at the Tottenham game, you look at the City game, which primarily was because of that red card, but that Aston Villa game, that was the big one. They've allowed the other teams to have primary control of possession, and Arsenal have tried to take advantage of individual moments of quality and set pieces to really create their opportunities and to score their goals, not really sustain dominance play. Now this game being played at Emirates, does that change it? Some of these games that I mentioned, the Villa game, the City game, they are away games, which makes you want to take more control. I mean, what makes you want, which is away games, which, maybe justifies a little bit more of a controlled approach. But, playing this game at Emirates, it might be a little bit different. But the thing is, too, the lack of creativity within this team, the defensive issues now as well. You could be in a position, if you're Mikel Arteta, that you can have either Kivior or Zinchenko playing on that left-hand side. Depending on the situation with Timber. You want those, you got Mohamed Salah as well to contend with coming on his left foot. You need to, that's a position you have to be assured in. There's no two ways about it. And Calafiori, he's probably going to be out. And even if he wasn't out, he was probably going to have to slide into the center half because of the issue next to Gabriel with Saliba not being there. So that's a hole that Arsenal are going to have in this game. I think Salah will be able to get what he wants. I do think Darwin Nunez, you can take advantage of Gabriel and whoever is playing next to him. There is that opportunity. But when the opportunity comes, you got to be clinical as well. That can be an issue as well for Darwin Nunez. He has that ability where he can create something out of nothing, just a brilliant, absolutely great finish. And then the easy opportunity comes and he clanks the post from 3 yards out. Like, that's just the definition of Darwin Nunez. So they need to find that consistency. I do have to say, I'm trying to think, I don't know which team is really going to dominate this game. I feel like both teams will be comfortable with the other team controlling possession, with the other team dictating the tempo. I think both teams will be, if you saw what Liverpool did against Chelsea, if you see what Arsenal has done against some of the bigger teams that they faced this season, I think both teams will be comfortable with conceding possession and allowing the other team to dictate, mostly everything is going on, which makes me wonder, so what kind of game are we going to see? Which team is going to be the one that created the more opportunities, that has more of the possession, that looks more lively, that looks like they want to, get the victory war. I don't know. I'm really, really, really struck because I see a good position where you can say for both sides. Now, the thing is, though, I think Arsenal have had this approach has almost been a consistent part of their season. We've seen Liverpool be, have certain periods in games where they're a little bit more balanced and they're not going 99 miles per hour and they're allowing other teams to have a little bit of possession. But the Chelsea game was a completely different story. I mean, in that entire second half, it was all Chelsea. Liverpool did not let Chelsea do anything. I mean, Chelsea didn't concede possession much at all after that Curtis Jones zone. It was all Chelsea, and Liverpool was conceding it all, and they weren't even really hungry to try to get out and try to play their own game. They were content with it. Arne Slot was content with it. You've never seen Jurgen Klopp be content with it. That's why I'm here. I'm tricky because I think both teams will be content with not dominating it. I really do. So I have no idea who is going to be the main protagonist in this one. What I do know, though, is the desperation down the line in this game, especially the game as the longer it stays is a draw. Which I don't think the draw will be the worst thing in the world for either team, but like your Arsenal, desperation is there. Number one, you're a home team, so you're trying to win your home games no matter what team you're playing. If you're a title contending team, you're always trying to protect your home. No matter what it is, you have to protect your home pitch. But the other added element to this, you look at the top of the Premier League right now, Liverpool are already 4 points clear of Arsenal. City are already 3 points clear of Arsenal. City take on Southampton, bottom feeder in Premier League. Let's just assume they'll win that. I think it's more than safe to assume. Southampton is currently sitting bottom with 1 point through 8 games, 7 losses, a draw, minus 12 goal differential. Let's assume City take care of that deal. Arsenal lose to Liverpool, they already find themselves 7 points behind, Liverpool, and 6 points behind City in 8 games. In my opinion, I'm wrapping it up. I'm calling I'm conceding it. I'm telling all Arsenal fans to concede. This is not their season to win the title. They're not winning it this season. They go forget Liverpool because that's a different notion there. Liverpool is a contender, but you go 6 points behind City in 9 games. You're already having to play catch up. Usually, you should be the one up, and you're trying to prevent City from catching up. But you're already having to play catch up after 9 games by multiple games, 6 games. No way. Arsenal can lose the Premier League title this season. They can play themselves out of the Premier League title this season just based on the loss to Bournemouth, the 2 draws that they suffered. They can really play because City is not losing games. They're unbeaten in all competition. They're not going to drop points here and there. Even Liverpool look like a team that are finding some sort of consistency. Going back 7 points to Dortmund through 9 games, it's almost as bad as well because they have huge consistency. This is a Liverpool team that has won 8 or 7 of their first 8 games for a reason. They're defensively the strongest unit in the Premier League. They've only conceded 3 goals for a reason. They're not going to drop much points going forward. You will have that occasional Nottingham Forest winning here and there. But that's not going to be a consistent nature. What we see from them against Chelsea, what we've seen from them throughout the duration of the season is what Liverpool is as a consistent football unit. So to think that you can, easily, bridge the 7-point gap later on is just pure arrogance. And I don't think there's any Arsenal fan that thinks that way. But yeah, I do. This is a must win for Arsenal. There's no arguing that for me. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss some of the Premier League matchups coming up this weekend.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Arsenal taking on Liverpool. We move on to do a full Premier League preview of this weekend. A lot of Premier League games coming up this weekend. First of all, I did want to touch on Nottingham Forest 3-1 win over Leicester City. Nottingham Forest quietly been impressive this season. Already have 16 points through 9 games, 4 wins, 4 draws. This is a team that I thought was fully in the midst of a relegation battle. In fact, I think I might have had them relegated. I thought this was the year that they would fall off. But look, Nuno Espirito Santos has them playing some efficient football, and Bobby Wood, or not Bobby Wood, Chris Wood, New Zealand great. I believe he might be their international all-time leading goal scorer, Chris Wood, but he already has 7 goals this season, 7 goals in 9 games. His pure direct nature, being at the right place, right time. The goals is huge for them. And look, Leicester City, I think is a team that still will get out. But I was impressed by Nottingham Forest, and I think Nottingham Forest in this game proved they're a class above from the teams like Leicester's. And I was completely wrong on my notion, because they're very efficient. They can allow Leicester City to have 65% of the possession, but they will still create more opportunities and they will still get more goals. Efficient nature to them, and efficiency is the best way to get results in the Premier League. Just being efficient, especially if you're one of those mid-table teams that are trying to prevent getting relegated, or maybe you're one of those mid-table teams that are trying to push into that top 10. It's just you have to have that efficient nature to you, that even in games that you get dominated in possession, you still are able to create more opportunities. You still have more cutting edge than the opposition, and I think that's what. And I think Nottingham Forest is a good example of that. City taking on Southampton. This is a game that City should trounce, because, well, this is another Slavia Praha. This is another, Ipswich situation. Another, this is a poor team, compared to Manchester City. Just the squad difference and all that, the quality between the two different. We know Southampton, they caused Arsenal issues, but Arsenal are going through a lot of injuries and all that. This Manchester City team just have far more quality, and this is an opportunity for Erling Haaland to add to his 10 goals. He has 10 goals up to this point in his career, and at Manchester City. He can continue to add to that crazy record, because I'm not one of those that say he doesn't show up in the big game or anything like that. Far from that. I think he's a brilliant player, and some of that is actually disrespectful in my opinion. But he does get a lot of production coming against these garbage teams that really can't do anything, like a City, no, not garbage teams, but teams that have less quality, like Southampton. They really can't create much against City and can't stop them from just completely dominating the game and possession and all that. And on top of that, game is played at Etihad. Come on, let's be for real. Brentford taking on Ipswich. I think this is a team between two managers that are proven that they can get a good sum out of their players. It's time for Ipswich to get some results though, because a point here and there gets you nowhere, no fast. Look, if you told me through 8 games they only lost 4, that's not a bad start. But they haven't won a single game either. And when you're in a relegation battle, especially this early, points don't get you. 1 point doesn't get you anywhere fast. The 3 points is gonna keep you out of that relegation zone. And they need to start getting. Now it's a tough test going away to Brentford. We know the quality that Brentford has. Now Brentford hasn't been great this season. They concede a lot of goals, and they've conceded 15 goals this season, and they have -1 goal differential because of that. They have 10 points through. Had that bad loss to United. Only have 3 wins through 8 games, but Brentford has that ability to play up. They have a player that's in the top scorer. It's escaping my mind, but they have O'Brien Embo that's in top scorer for a reason. I don't know who I'll favor in that. I'll probably favor Brentford because of the fact that at home it's difficult for Kieran McKenna and that Ipswich team to go there and win that. Brighton versus Wolves. Brighton has been another team that's been pretty impressive. Wolves, on the other hand, far from that. They've been extremely open, and against City, they closed up shop, and they still ended up losing somehow on that very, very late goal. I think Wolves, they're very, very open, but I think they're finally going to start figuring it out because they need to if they don't, unless they want to get relegated. Now, the difficult thing is doing that away against Brighton, a Brighton team that's managed brilliantly by Fabian Horsler, that is also very efficient too. Brighton teams in the past, they've been able to dominate in terms of controlling possession, creating so many clear-cut opportunities. I think there's a beauty in which you can have less possession, but you still create more. I think that efficient nature to that is almost the new way of football. I'm tired of tiki-taka. And then the gegenpress Jurgen Klopp way, which I always loved, that could be difficult to defend with. You can put you in a vulnerable position defending, but if you can have the right balance with the two of certain periods pushing people forward and being able to be efficient while not having control of possession and still create more opportunities because of the cutting edge, because of the quality, because of the efficiency of the players, the clinicalness of the players, that's a beauty in itself. And I think Brighton is a good example of that so far this season, and I think Wolves is not by any means a good example of that. So I surely have to make Brighton the favorites after saying all that. No, Aston Villa take on Bournemouth. Aston Villa team, these are two overachieving teams, but one is overachieving on a Champions League level, reaching the Champions League last season, playing really, really good football in the Champions League this season so far, having a really good start for them in the Premier League campaign, to Bournemouth, who's a team that we probably expect to be in around the relegation battle, but they're, comfortably, mid-table last year, and they're looking like a team that can do that this time around. But the problem, this game being at Villa Park, I just think Unai Emery, he can't have them drop their level. They won't drop their level. They take advantage of these games, and they will yet again. Everton take on Fulham. Everton, they've done a good job since they started off with 4 losses, something crazy, to start picking up points. Now they're already sitting on 8. They win 2 games and they draw 2. That's the thing. That's why I say, 1 point doesn't get you anywhere fast if you're Ipswich with 4 draws and 4 losses. Everton, who have 4 losses, they were able to culminate 2 draws and a win, 2 draws in the 4 games that they dropped. And that makes them, that puts them 4 points higher than Ipswich right now, and level with West Ham. Goal differential separates them. As far as Everton in this one, I think they've played some pretty decent football this season. Even in some of the games that they lost, it's just that finishing touch. I think playing this game at Goodison, I'll fancy Everton. Chelsea taking on Tottenham. Oh, we're not going to discuss Arsenal and Liverpool, by the way. Crystal Palace taking on Tottenham. Look, this is another game, in my opinion, that Tottenham are going to be able to dominate. Even this game is away at Selhurst Park. I think they'll be able to dominate in possession and control of the game and all that. They just play such brilliant football under Postecoglou. And these are the sort of games going up against lesser opposition. A Crystal Palace team that's been pretty poor for their standards, they will take advantage of. I think their lack of cutting edge has been an issue that we have seen of recently been solved. They're able to create a lot of clear-cut out opportunities, and they're taking advantage of that as well. There's no question on whether or not they'll be able to dominate Crystal Palace. They just have far better, not even quality, even though individually they have much more talented players, but as a unit as well, they're a proper footballing team. They're properly coached. They're properly put in the right place to succeed by Postecoglou, and I don't see that changing here. If they can have that finishing touch, they're clinical. They take advantage of the opportunities that come. They'll trounce Tottenham. Chelsea take on Newcastle. Another very interesting game. This is a Newcastle team as well that hasn't played the best of football so far. They've had certain games where they're efficient, like against Tottenham, where they had multiple goals against the run of play. But overall, they're winless in their last 4 games, or their last 4 Premier League games. Since they beat Wolves, they went on to lose to Fulham out at Carrow Road, I believe it's called. They drew with City, which they always play City pretty good. They drew with Everton, which in hindsight, is it a horrible result? I don't know. But then that loss to Brighton was a pretty bad result because, look, again, Brighton out efficient them, only having 40% possession, but them getting the goal and not Newcastle. There's no Eddie Howe to England rumors anymore, but at the same time, Eddie Howe, he might be in a little bit of trouble if the pressure starts raking up, because Newcastle, they have the quality. This team, in my opinion, probably individually is better than that team that reached the Champions League. If you factor in players like Sandro Tonali, but the problem is the cohesion is not there. They don't defend as well as a unit. They don't create enough opportunities. They're way too heavily reliant on the counter. Newcastle teams in the past, counterattack has been very, very important, but they're able to create opportunities also just through normal run of play. It's not, a lot of their opportunities come right now in transition, taking advantage of weaker opposition. That, if you're Newcastle, you need to. If you're Newcastle, you need to. What's the word? Word is mistaken my man. You need to be more efficient, but you need to be able to get at teams even more. As far as Chelsea, they've been absolutely brilliant this season, being managed now by Enzo Maresca. Look, they've taken advantage of all the teams that they need to win, and 2 teams that they should lose to in City and Liverpool, they did, but they showed promising signs there. Chelsea, Enzo Fernandez, he's probably not going to be involved in this game as he was involved midweek and wasn't involved in the big game this weekend. So I think Chelsea are starting to slowly figure out what their best team is, and I'm here and I'm excited for it because they're playing some really, really good football. I'm enjoying watching them again, and it's always great when Chelsea's a good team. And this game is played at Stamford Bridge. I'm going to favor Chelsea, yeah. West Ham take on Manchester United. United coming off that difficult game against Fenerbahce. Overall, not bad result, but just it's always difficult to go away to Turkey and all that. They had that really good win against Brentford. Now going away to London against West Ham. Look, I will say this. Players like Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho, if you can get some pace in this front line and you have that quality and that directness, West Ham can be a very easy team to carve up. They can be very, very open. Now, they'll create opportunities from themselves. They have some quality in this team as well. It's Mikel Antonio, Lucas Paquetá, Mohamed Kudus, Jared Bowen, Thomas Susek. They have some huge, huge quality in this team as well. West Ham, but they can also be easy to play against, easy to carve them up, create opportunities, and that's something that I think Man United might struggle with, but overall I do think United are slightly the favorites, just because I think they are overall the better team, have more quality than West Ham. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll do a full Serie A match day 9 preview.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we did a full Premier League preview for this weekend. We move on to do a Serie A match day 9 full preview as well. A lot of games coming up in Serie A this weekend. Serie A has been pretty interesting league this season. A lot of drama, a lot of mixing and turning as well. Was with the Daniel De Rossi situation, we see penalty drama incident in Milan. I've been impressed with some of surgeons with players as well so far in Serie A. Mario Retegui, 8 goals for Atalanta. You remember a few years ago, he was that big addition for the Italian national team because he was a dual national. He's eligible to represent Argentina. In fact, theoretically, he was born, I think, raised in Argentina. He came over to Italy just a few years ago when he was signed by, I believe it was originally signed by Genoa. But this is a dude that came up the ranks at Boca Juniors, and the fact that he was willing to choose Argentina. This is a man that, Italy. This is a man born and raised in Spain, and he happened to have a maternal grandfather who immigrated to Argentina from Italy. So he had that Italian DNA in him, Italian blood. He decided to represent the Italian national team, which, that's good for him. I guess he sees more of an opportunity to play for Italy because, keep in mind, Argentina just won a World Cup. So, and him now, his start was a little bit slow, but this season, getting 8 goals, maybe he can lock up that number 9 position. We know Thuram, the quality he has. He scored 7 goals this season. I'm surprised he's been a more important and more dominant figure than Lautaro Martinez, who has struggled to get involved game in, game out. Only had 3 goals so far. A lot of games that he hasn't even started. This is a dude that was one Serie A Player of the Year last season, I believe, or I know for sure he was top scorer. So it's it remains to be seen if he has a bigger role, not a bigger role, but a bigger impact going forward. But yeah, overall, really good to Serie A. First of all, I do have to say Udinese Udinese beat Cagliari 2-0. Big red card coming from Antoine Macumbo in the 29th minute changed the game. Udinese went on to beat Cagliari 2-0 with goals from Lorenzo Luca in the 38th minute and then Kenan Davis in the 78th minute. You look at the statistics: 13 shots for Udinese, 3 shots for Cagliari, 4 shots on target for Udinese, none for Cagliari. As far as the other game that happened as well today, or technically yesterday because we're past midnight, Torino beat Como 1-0, winning goal from Alionihe in the 75th minute for Torino. 8 shots for Torino, 20 shots for Como, 2 shots on target for Torino, but 6 shots on target for Como. Como had almost 70% possession. Played some decent football overall, but wasn't clinical enough. They're sitting right now 14th, which is not bad for them, playing top 5 football in Serie A for the first time. New manager as well in Cesc Fabregas. I'm interested to see how Como looks going forward. I used to there was a period I called them Retirement FC because Pepe Reina was still there, and then Varane actually ended up retiring. But that's not here. That's not here nor there. what was the what was the other storyline that I wanted to discuss in Serie A before? No, yeah, okay. Bologna versus AC Milan game. That game has been postponed, because of the Italian authorities decided to postpone it because of bad weather forecasts. So that game will not be happening. Fiorentina face Roma. Roma had a very disappointing game against Inter. They need a reaction going up against Fiorentina. Big game for Roma. Hasn't been the great start. Been through ups and downs, but now taking on Fiorentina, this needs to be a catalyst for them going forward. You also have the likes of Parma taking on Empoli, Atalanta taking on Verona, Napoli, who are currently sitting top and are doing it in very good fashion, only conceding 5 goals, creating a few opportunities here and there themselves. So I love watching a Conte team play. I think they have the perfect balance. As I said in the past, when I talk about balanced football is the best football, I love watching Conte's team. Obviously, Napoli, the favorites there. Lazio take on Genoa. Monza take on Venezia, Monza take on Venezia, and nice break by Fiorentina taking on Roma. The big game though is Inter taking on Juventus. Obviously, Juventus, they dominated Serie A for a very, very, very long time. Generally, my whole soccer watching lifetime almost. And then Inter, over recently, they've been the top team in Serie A, winning the 2 of the last 3. Now Juventus, it seems like they're slowly making their way back up. They're currently sitting 3rd. They haven't lost a game this season. They're only a point below Inter Milan, and they're only 3 points behind Napoli. Don't have the most crazy talented squad or even starting 11, but Thiago Motta, who's a manager that's known for getting the best out of his players, is making it work. This is a derby as well, the Derby d'Italia, and playing this game at San Siro, will be a challenge. Especially, I think the crowd will be up for it, and the fact that this is you're taking on Juventus, who's had past success and are trying to make their way back. Again, if you're Inter Milan as well, you don't want to do much slipping early on. You don't want to create any sort of gap with Napoli. We know what Conte has been able to do in years past. Whenever he's get a gap, he's only exploited them and made it wider and wider and ran away with leagues. If you're Inter Milan, that's the last thing you want to happen. Of course, at San Siro as well. But that's going to be fabulous, and I'm interested to see how both managers approach this game. Of Juventus, Juventus have a balanced nature to them, which I didn't really, I didn't really expect that before the season with the manager like Thiago Motta. I thought they'd be more open-ended, but yeah, that's gonna be an interesting game to watch. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top soccer headlines. Before the break, we discussed Serie on match day 9. We move on to do a reaction of some of the top soccer headlines in the football world. Inter Miami, they beat Atlanta for the MLS playoff victory. Jordi Alba had a screamer in this game. Messi had a few opportunities here and there as well. Couldn't get it to go, but it was Jordi Alba that got an assist from Messi with the go-ahead goal in the 60th minute. Luis Suarez, he was also able to get on the score sheet as they beat Atlanta 2-1. It's the opening game of a best-of-3 first-round Major League playoff series. So good for Inter Miami to get the result there. Pep Guardiola said City won't have a United-style collapse if I leave. He says I don't know what happened at United. It will be a bad sign for the club if after just one person leaves and everything is dragged down. Maybe they will make mistakes, but during the mistakes they will solve it. Then the mistakes will be solved immediately. That is for sure. The guys know exactly what they have to do. Guardiola, who is still currently under contract only up to the end of the season, and he's refused to give any sort of hints or clarification on whether or not he will be extending the deal. There's sources that say that City is expecting something to come during the November international break. And if you're City, the sooner you get this news, one way or not, is better, because if it is the case that Guardiola will decide to leave, you want to be in a position like Liverpool was, where they knew from early on that Klopp was leaving, so they could go out and get their number one guy, that they can go out and get whoever they wanted as soon as possible, and they can have him in right away, like how Liverpool had in Arne Slot, which I think they're eating the sweet fruit from that labor now because of how great that they've been this season. I think a lot of it has to do with the continuity of Arne Slot loading right in, right away, and being able to have as much time as he can with the players. We go back. I thought we would stop talking about this, but PSG has now gone into court over their wage dispute with Kylian Mbappe. They're going to take this court to the LDFP or the LFP, the Ligue de Football Professionnel. It's English. I don't know why I used the French accent. It's reported that Mbappe has not been Mbappe has not commented on the dispute yet, and we know he's seeking around $60 million in salary and bonuses that he's said is owned by the club. There's about some back and forth bickering about this clause here, this clause there, this there. At the end of the day, the courts should be able to come up with a reasonable explanation of why this is going on. PSG spokesperson came out and said, "What is in the debate and will ultimately be heard before an appropriate tribunal is that the original contract was legally amended in August 23rd, relating to the 2024-25 season, and also fully recognized by the player, including in January 2024, until the player then decided to renege all of his commitments upon leaving the club. As a matter of law, in fact, the player has made clear repeated public and private commitments at the club that the club simply asks are honored, with the players being afforded unprecedented benefits by the club over 7 years in Paris. The club hopes these basic commitments will simply be respected, knowing that the club will be forced to have the players' bad faith judged by the competent courts if the player regrettably seeks to pursue the incomprehensibly damaging dispute for himself and for French football further." By the way, I didn't discuss this. Tottenham Hotspur, we'll get to this, but Tottenham Hotspur did defeat AZ Alkmaar over this past few days in the Europa League. They defeated AZ Alkmaar in the Europa League. Didn't really discussed that. Ten Hag, when he was speaking about the Spurs defeat when they lost 2-3-0 and they got absolutely dominated, Ten Hag said he has chosen to deny and ignore the defeat because apparently of the red card shown to Bruno Fernandes during that game. He says, I deny that game, ignore that game against Spurs because we were downsized to 10 with a 1-0 losing position, and then the red card was overturned. So I totally ignored that game. That is not a fair assessment of the team to take into consideration because we didn't have the chance to bounce back. But you say this team is resilient, this team is determined against Brentford, 2 tough away games now in Europe, Porto, and today again against Fenerbahce. This team has character and his team showed fighting spirit and determination to win games. Okay, look, this dude Erik ten Hag cannot get his head out of where the sun does not shine. Even if he believes the things that he's saying right now about how he ignores the game and all that and it shouldn't even count and blah, 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 why say something like that? Why open yourself for that criticism? Why open yourself for that criticism to say he ignores that game because we didn't have the opportunity to bounce back? Well, y'all were getting absolutely dog walked at home at Old Trafford in that first 45 minutes or so when Tottenham did take the lead before the red card. They were getting dog walked on the way there and dog walked backwards on the way back. And you come out with these sort of comments trying to almost dismiss the victory because of a red card that was overturned. I mean, even though it was overturned, does it take into the fact, does it still matter that performance, even if you're down 10 men at home in that second half, was still crap, was still embarrassing? Is there no accountability for that? Just because the red card might have been unfair, oh yeah, let's just ignore any fault that we had from that game. That's just BS and it's nonsense. And it's one, I say this all the time, but it's like this dude wants to dig his own grave. It almost feels like he's trying to dig his own grave at Manchester United. But for some reason, a result comes whenever he needs it the most. And, it seems like it might have happened again. But look, I'm not washed. I'm not saying the general public is washed, but I'm not... What's the word? I'm not going to ignore certain things like this. Like, at the end of the day, enough is enough. And United fans, even I'm starting to get to the point where I think United fans deserve better. MLS Cup playoffs, though. Inter Miami, are they going to win it? That's going to be very, very... very, very interesting. Montreal, no, not Montreal. We know in the wild card round, Vancouver beat Portland 5-0, and then Atlanta got passed on penalty kicks over Montreal. Now this is round 1, best of 3. With what we saw from Miami and Atlanta, we get Galaxy also playing Colorado tomorrow. And then the day after, you have Orlando taking on Charlotte, and then LAFC taking on Vancouver. These are, games. These MLS playoff games are, huge games. Especially if you're an MLS fan. So, if you're an MLS fan in America, I'm not. I have to be honest. You should tune in. Vinicius Jr. apparently, he's favored to win the Ballon d'Or. Because of what he did last season. Me personally, I wouldn't go in his direction because I think Rodri was as dominant, as important to Manchester City. The difference is Vinicius did not show up in the Copa America for Brazil. Yes, he was suspended in the game that they got eliminated, but in the group stages, he was not electric. He was not dynamite. He had that game against Paraguay, but against Colombia, against Costa Rica, in my opinion, nowhere to be seen. Rodri was a huge integral part of a Manchester City team that won the Premier League, that won, the Champions League was not there, but won the Premier League, and also was an integral part of Spain, who won the European Championship. What happened to whenever it's an international tournament summer, like a European Championship, Copa America, or a World Cup summer? What happened to the international competition having a big factor in it? It should. That's a big, big moment, a big, big part of football. So I don't understand it. I think Rodri almost should be the clear cut out. you have to perform for your country to be deserving of this, especially whenever there's an international competition. But hey, I don't come up with the rules. Thank you guys, though, for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful day.
Let's go.